The wind carried the scent of earth and old leaves as it brushed across Greenwood Cemetery. Trees stood tall like sentinels, their branches thinning with the season's shift, copper and gold leaves tumbling down around the faded headstones. A light mist clung to the ground, still lingering from dawn's breath. Lily's small feet crunched softly against the gravel path, her sneakers scuffed into tight. The left toe patched with duct tape, she carried a bouquet made of wildflowers bright, but fragile, gathered from the fractured lots between buildings near the shelter, dandelions, purple thistle, clover, and Queen Anne's lace, none of it expensive, none of it perfect. But every stem had been chosen with care. They were wrapped in a torn strip of newspaper, damp now from her grip and the morning dew. She kept it cradled like it was something precious. It had been a year, exactly 1 year, since her world turned quiet. Lily didn't cry anymore, not because she didn't want to, just because it didn't seem to matter. Tears had no place in the shelter or the foster homes, or during long nights spent staring at ceilings that didn't belong to her. Her mother had taught her early to be tough in silence. People only notice you when you make noise, she used to say, and not in a good way. So Lily became quiet, but every month, when she could, she came here. Her mother's grave wasn't grand, just a small, worn headstone with the name Emily Grace Harlow etched into the granite. No dates, no messages, no flowers, just that name alone, like she had been. Lily rounded the corner where the path split and stopped. Someone was already there. A man knelt before her mother's headstone, dressed in a dark, expensive suit that looked sharp even against the soft chill of the wind. His shoes were polished, but scuffed at the tips from kneeling on the gravel. His head was bowed low, one hand on the gravestone, the other resting on his knee, fingers curled as if he were gripping onto something invisible. A bouquet of white lilies, real ones, elegant and heavy with fragrance, sat gently at the base of the stone. Lily froze, her fingers tightening around her newspaper-wrapped flowers. No one ever came here, not once in a year. The man's shoulders trembled, and she heard it, the unmistakable sound of someone trying not to cry. His breath hitched, and then a quiet sob escaped him, muffled by the collar of his coat. He wiped his face with the back of his hand like a boy, clumsy and ashamed. Not the kind of crying people do when they stub their toe or get bad news. No, this was old grief, the kind that claws out of the chest, years too late. Lily stepped back into the shadow of a thick tree, hiding behind its trunk. She watched him, heart thudding with questions. Who was he? Why was he crying at her mother's grave? No one else had ever mourned Emily but her. They had been all each other had. Now the stranger was crying like he had known her to. And for the first time in a year, Lily wasn't the only one grieving. The man didn't belong there. That was Lily's first real thought as she stood behind the tree, breath held tight in her lungs like a secret. He looked like he had stepped out of another world, one with clean colors, warm dinners, and rooms that didn't echo with strangers' voices. His coat was long, expensive, the kind that swallowed a person in thick wool and status. His shoes gleamed despite the dirt, and his scent, faint even from this distance, carried sharp notes of cologne and something she couldn't name, but remembered from old memories. Maybe her mother's coat after long subway rides. City life, grown-up life, life before. The white lilies seemed to glow in the gray morning. Their petals were flawless, elegant, the kind of flowers you could never pluck from broken sidewalks. Lily looked down at her own bundle, small, messy, fragile, and suddenly felt like she was holding weeds. He still hadn't seen her. He bowed lower and murmured something she couldn't hear, fingers tracing the cold stone, his hand pausing over her mother's name like it hurt to read it. Then, through the stillness, his voice finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry, Emily," he whispered. "I'm so damn sorry." Lily's stomach dropped. Her mother's name, spoken like a prayer or a curse. She didn't move, didn't blink, barely breathed. The way he said it, it wasn't casual. It wasn't respectful like strangers do when reading a name on a grave. It was personal, intimate, like it meant something, like he'd known her. That wasn't possible, was it? Her mother never talked about the past, never spoke of friends, or family, or love. Only once had Lily asked about her father, as she remembered the flash of steel in her mother's voice when she'd replied, "He's gone, and we don't need him." That was the end of it. She never asked again, but now this man knelt at her grave, crying like he'd lost something sacred. Then, as if he felt her watching, he turned. His eyes found hers in an instant, pale gray like ash after fire-haunted eyes. They widened with something more than surprise. Recognition? No. Shock. Grief. Maybe even fear. Lily's first instinct was to run. That old, familiar urge to vanish, to disappear before things got too complicated. But her feet wouldn't move. Her heart was hammering to hard in her chest. Wait, he said, rising slowly from the grave, his voice hoarse. She took a step back. I'm sorry, he said again, this time to her. She stared at him, at the expensive clothes, the eyes rimmed, red, the grief clinging to him like a wet coat. You knew my mom. Her voice was small, unsure. Her fist clenched around her bouquet. Why are you crying at her grave? He blinked, his mouth opening, then closing again. He looked down, then back at her. Your name. Is it Lily? Her breath caught. How do you know my name? He swallowed hard. There was silence between them, raw, stretched tight, and then he said something that made the cold cemetery feel even colder. Because I think I'm your father. The words hit like thunder. Lily staggered back, flowers slipping from her hand. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared, pale as the headstone behind him, as the world spun around the name that both mourned. Emily. Her mother. His ghost. Their only link. And now, this man, this stranger with trembling hands, claimed to be the piece of her past her mother had buried deeper than any grave. But Lily didn't know yet. This was only the beginning, because he wasn't the only one who had come looking for Emily's secrets, and not all of them came with flowers. The wind shifted. It swept through the trees like a whisper from something long dead, curling around headstones and threading between the man and the girl who stood frozen in a moment neither of them had planned for. Lily's chest rose and fell. Too quickly, her throat tight. She didn't move, but her mind raced. That word father echoed louder than the breeze, louder than the traffic in the distance, louder than her own heartbeat. He took a careful step forward. I shouldn't have said it like that, he said, hands raised slightly, as if calming a wild animal. It's complicated. You think, Lily snapped, too sharp for someone so small. You just show up here and say something like that, and what? I'm supposed to believe you. He looked pained. No, I don't expect you to believe me. I wouldn't believe me either. She blinked hard. You're lying. I'm not. You're rich, she said bitterly. Rich people lie all the time. He laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. You're not wrong. Lily hated how calm he was, how tired he looked, how sincere his eyes seemed. She hated that a part of her believed him. But she'd learned to distrust faces, even kind ones, especially kind ones. Julian Cross, though she didn't know his name yet, was a man who had lived in skyscrapers, flown on private jets, had his name etched in business magazines. His face had been lit by the glow of computer screens and stock tickers. He'd spent decades building a fortune on artificial intelligence and clean energy, trying to fix the world in the way only men with enough money to feel guilty ever did. But he couldn't fix this. Not what he'd lost. Not what he never knew he had. Your mother and I, he started, then stopped himself. We were kids, 17. She was fire. You know, that kind of fire that makes you think you'll never be cold again. He didn't need to describe her. Lily had the same fire in her eyes. We were stupid, in love. I thought I had to leave Brooklyn to be someone. I didn't know she was pregnant. She never told me. I only found out after she died. How? Lily demanded, his jaw clenched. I came back to the city last year for business. I didn't even know she was here still. Someone mentioned her name. I searched. I found her obituary, found your name. Then I started digging. Lily shook her head. That's creepy. I know, he said quietly. Her stomach twisted. Her fingers trembled. I have proof, he added, pulling something slowly from his coat, a photograph, weathered at the corners. She stepped closer without realizing it. The photo showed the teenagers. A girl with wild hair and laughing eyes. A boy with messy curls and shy arms wrapped around her. That's her, Lily whispered. He nodded. And that's me. There was a silence then, long, uneasy. I didn't come here to take you, he said. Eyes wet again. I came because I needed to say goodbye to her, and maybe ask if you'd let me try to know you. Lily didn't answer. She was still staring at the photograph. It was like someone had reached into a part of her she'd closed up a long time ago and turned on the light. but light always shows the cracks, because in the distance, behind an old mausoleum, someone else was watching, a figure in a dark coat, silent as the grave, eyes fixed on them through the trees. Not everyone wanted the past unearthed. Not everyone had come with flowers. Some had come to bury the truth again, and this time, deeper, where even Lily couldn't find it, ass checked. The shelter smelled like bleach and boiled potatoes. It clung to the faded walls and the second-hand blankets and the heavy air of resignation that filled every hallway. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering in places, humming like insects. Trapped in a jar, Lily walked down the corridor with her shoulders tight and her head low, clutching the crumpled photograph in her coat pocket like a secret she wasn't sure she wanted. She hadn't spoken since leaving the cemetery. Not to Julian, not to the shelter workers, not even to herself. The other kids didn't notice her return. They were busy jostling over a broken game console in the common room, or slurping watery soup in the cafeteria. A few glanced up as she passed but didn't bother to speak. She preferred it that way. Quiet was easier, but inside her head, nothing was quiet. His words looped again and again. I didn't know. She never told me. I think I'm your father. She hated how much they mattered. Her mother had been everything funny, fierce, soft when the world turned sharp. Lily remembered the way her fingers would braid her hair while whispering fairy tales from her own memory. The way she'd squeeze her hand 3 times before bed, their secret code for I love you. Her mother didn't make mistakes. She didn't lie, but she did hide things. Lily pulled out the photo under the dull hallway light and stared at it again. To kids frozen in time, her mother's smile half defiant, half free. Julian's expression, all awkward pride. He looked like someone who believed the world was about to begin. Then, abruptly, the lights above her snapped off. The hallway fell into darkness, a fuse, maybe, or a storm overhead, or maybe just this place, falling apart piece by piece like everything else she tried to hold on to. But something was off. Her instincts, honed sharp by nights in shelters and foster homes with too many closed doors, pricked at her neck. There were footsteps behind her, not loud, not fast, just deliberate. She turned. Nothing. The hallway was empty, or so it seemed. Hello, she called out. No answer. She stood still, listening. The shelter's usual hum, kids shouting, radios playing, pipes groaning was gone. To quiet. She began walking again, faster this time. Photo tucked tightly into her fist. She turned the corner near her room and froze. Her door was open. She never left her door open. She stepped inside cautiously. Everything looked the same. The threadbare mattress, the cracked mirror, the plastic drawer with her only clothes. But her backpack, zipped and hidden behind a crate under her bed, was unzipped. Someone had gone through her things. Her skin prickled. She checked the pack. Her sketchbook was still there. Her socks. Her mother's necklace still buried in the small zip pocket. But something was wrong. She backed out slowly, heart thudding. That's when she saw it, scratched into the paint on her door. Just faint. Enough to miss at first glance were 3 words she lied to. Lily staggered back, slamming into the opposite wall. Who had done that? What did it mean? She clutched the photo to her chest, pulse pounding. Her mother's smile suddenly looked different. Not freer but haunted. The past wasn't buried. It had teeth, and someone didn't want it uncovered. That night, Lily didn't sleep, and in a penthouse far above the city, Julian Cross was staring at an old letter Emily had once written but never mailed. A letter marked, in case of emergency, found in the bottom of a dusty box beneath floorboards. Only he would have known to check. The letter wasn't addressed to Lily. It was addressed to him, and it began with 3 words that would change everything. If they find us. The cemetery looked different at night. Shadows stretched long and deep between the tombstones, and the air felt colder, like the dead were closer to the surface somehow, listening, watching. The moon hung low over Greenwood Cemetery, caught in a haze of clouds, throwing just enough silver light to paint the grave markers in shades of bone and ash. Julian stood alone by Emily's grave, holding an envelope in one hand, a flashlight in the other. He didn't come with a driver this time, didn't wear his expensive coat. Tonight, he wasn't Julian Cross, tech visionary and billionaire recluse. He was just a man trying to piece together a past he had never been allowed to know. Inside the envelope was everything. A photograph of Lily and her mother taken at a carnival when Lily must have been around 5. Her face painted like a tiger, her mouth open mid-laugh, Her mother behind her, smiling but wary. A copy of a DNA test, hastily printed from a clinic upstate. A letter, typed and printed. No signature, no name, but the words bled desperation. If you're reading this, it means you've come too close. I did what I had to do to protect her. You think you know the story, but you don't. They're still out there. They never stop watching. Keep Lily away from everything I ran from, or you'll lose her too. Julian read it again, lips tight, stomach sinking. It wasn't the kind of message someone leaves when they're afraid of poverty or shame. It was the kind people write when they know something dark is watching. He set the envelope at the foot of the grave, tucked inside a waterproof plastic sleeve. He didn't know if Lily would return, but if she did, she needed to read it. He turned to leave and paused. A sound behind him, not the wind, a footstep. He turned slowly, flashlight beam sweeping across the headstones. Nothing. He scanned again, then he saw it. A figure half-lit, half-shadow standing several rows away, tall, still, watching. Julian's flashlight flicked upward, but the figure was already gone. He stood frozen for a moment, unsure if he'd imagined it, but something inside him twisted. He wasn't alone, and he hadn't been for a while. Lily didn't sleep. She lay curled on her mattress, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. The words scratched on her door still burning behind her eyes. She lied to. She flipped open her sketchbook in the dark. Page after page of charcoal drawing shapes, faces, memories. She'd drawn Emily from every angle she could remember, but tonight, she turned to a blank page. Her hand moved. On its own. She didn't know why she drew the man in the long coat, the one watching in the cemetery, the one she hadn't actually seen but felt, the one that seemed burned into the air behind her as she left her mother's grave. When she was done, she stared at the figure. No face, just a shape cloaked in dark lines, surrounded by shadows. Then, she turned to the envelope Julian had slipped to her after she fled the cemetery earlier that day. She had promised herself not to open it, but promises were useless now. She unfolded the letter. It was her mother's handwriting. Lily, if you ever see him, the man with silver eyes, don't follow him. Don't let him speak. He's not who he says he is. And if he ever tells you the words I told you never to forget, run. Don't look back. Lily's fingers shook. She whispered out loud, almost too soft to hear herself. What words? The page had been torn at the bottom, the rest gone. She turned, suddenly sensing movement outside the shelter window. Across the alley, standing beneath the flickering street lamp, was a tall man in a long coat. He was holding a sign. From across the dark street, Lily squinted for letters. LJH, her initials. Her mother's initials. His initials. Lily dropped the curtain and backed away, heart in her throat. She thought she was uncovering a story about a lost father. But now, it felt like something much older had been waiting for her to start digging. And it had just woken up. Asked Jack. The cemetery was soaked in silence, not the peaceful kind, but a thick, watching silence, the kind that hummed beneath your skin and made you feel like you'd stepped into a space that didn't quite belong to the living. Lily stood there again, in the same spot she had every month since her mother died, but now everything felt different. The grave in front of her wasn't just a stone anymore. It was a locked door, and somewhere in the past few days, she had started turning the key. In one hand, she held her wilting bouquet of wildflowers. In the other, trembling, was the letter. She read it twice, then 3 times, then once more, just to feel close to her mother's voice. But each time, the words carved deeper and colder into her ribs. If you ever see him, don't follow. Don't let him speak. And worse, if he says the words, run. She didn't know what the words were. She didn't want to know. But she also knew the letter had been ripped at the bottom, unfinished. And if someone had torn it away, it meant those words were never meant to reach her, or someone wanted her not to hear them. And still, she came, because Julian was waiting. He stood beside the headstone again, dressed in something simpler this time. No suit, no luxury, just a dark jacket, a scarf wrapped around his throat, and a bouquet of white lilies in his hand. His eyes looked older than the last time she saw him. He didn't speak when he saw her, just looked at her the way people stare at pictures of people they miss. Lily didn't know what to do with that kind of look, so she scowled instead. I got your letter, she said. He nodded. You read it? He asked softly. I read everything. Another pause. You saw the photo? She nodded. Double quotes. Do you believe it? I don't know. He sighed, shifting slightly. I know how insane it all sounds. Lily stepped closer. Why would she warn me about you? That made him flinch. He looked away. I don't know. Maybe she didn't trust me. Maybe. There's more to the story than either of us knows. Lily's heart beat faster. She looked down at the gravestone. The grass around it had grown patchy and brown, but something caught her eye, a corner of something poking out. From beneath the stone's edge, she crouched, fingers brushing dirt and cold stone, and pulled it free. It was another photo. Newer. She turned it over and gasped. It was her, taken from across the street, outside the shelter, just a few days ago. What is this? She whispered, her voice tight. Julian stepped forward. I didn't take that. Her eyes snapped up. Wow. Then who did? He looked around, instinctively scanning the shadows. I don't know. But Lily had seen this before, the same grainy style, the same angle. She remembered the flicker of movement outside her window. The man in the coat, the street lamp, there, watching me, she said. Julian's jaw clenched. We're running out of time. What do you mean? He knelt beside the grave and placed the lilies down gently. There's something I never told you. Something I was afraid to say until I was sure you'd come back. He stood, slowly, then looked her directly in the eyes. And then, he said, the two words, two soft syllables that struck her like a thunderclap. To words that unlocked every warning her mother had ever whispered. To words that made her freeze in place, her blood turning to ice. Little Jasmine, her mother's old pet name for her. A name no one else knew. A name she hadn't heard since the night her mother died, whispered only once. In the darkness, as her mother bled out beside her after the crash. A name she was told never to answer to again. Her breath caught. He saw the change in her eyes. He didn't realize what he'd done. But she did. Her legs moved before her mind could think. She turned and ran out past the graves, past the gates, into the cold, fog-wrapped dark. Because now she knew someone had been close to her mother in her final days. Close enough to learn her secrets, close enough to use her voice. And maybe, just maybe, Julian Cross wasn't who he said he was after all. The city swallowed her whole. Lily ran until her lungs burned, and the blur of traffic, streetlights, and honking horns erased everything behind her. Julian's face, the grave, even the words that had shattered her like glass. Little Jasmine. The name echoed in her skull like a ghost calling from a forgotten dream. She hadn't heard that name in a year, not since her mother whispered it with blood on her lips. Just before her eyes went still, her mother had made her promise, never answer to it. Never, ever, not unless I say it first. But her mother was dead, and now someone else had said it. Someone who shouldn't have known it. Someone who had claimed to be her father. Someone who might not be who he seemed at all. By the time Lily slowed, her knees were shaking and her teeth chattered from the night chill. She found herself in an alley near the waterfront. Abandoned warehouses looming like skeletons in the fog. She ducked behind a rusted dumpster and curled into herself, her heart pounding out warnings in every beat. She'd been alone before, many times, but this was different. This time, the past had started chasing her. She reached into her coat and pulled out the letter again. The edges were crumpled now, smudged with dirt and sweat. She stared at her mother's handwriting, willing it to make sense, to say more. But the warning was still just that cryptic, broken, terrifying. She closed her eyes. And then she remembered. That night, the night of the crash, she and her mother had been leaving the diner. Emily had looked over her shoulder 3 times before they got into the car. She had been whispering to herself, fingers gripping the steering wheel tight. And before the crash, just seconds before the blinding headlights slammed into them, Emily had turned to her and said, if anything happens to me, remember what I told you. Don't trust. And then everything had gone black. Lily had never remembered the end of that sentence. Not until now. Don't trust Julian. That's what her mother had said. She was sure of it now. She stood suddenly, pulse racing. The alley seemed darker, and when she turned, she wasn't alone anymore. A shadow stood at the far end of the alley, the same silhouette from outside the shelter window. The same tall figure she'd drawn in her sketchbook. Her voice caught in her throat. The man stepped forward slowly, his coat dragging just above the concrete. The lamplight flickered overhead, and for 1 second, his face was visible. It wasn't Julian, but it was familiar. Lily's blood ran cold. She knew that face from a photo. Not one Julian gave her, no, one her mother had hidden in her Bible. tucked between brittle pages, folded in half. The photo of the man who used to work for Julian Cross, his best friend, a partner in his early startup years. He disappeared off the grid more than a decade ago after being investigated for insider sabotage and data theft. Her mother had called him the quiet one, the man who listened more than he spoke, the man who was always around, even when no one knew he was watching. And now he stood in front of her, calm, patient. I warned her, he said softly. Emily, I told her Julian wasn't who he pretended to be, but she didn't listen. Lily backed away. Who are you? He stepped closer. I'm the one who helped her disappear, the one who kept you off the grid, the one who knew you were safer without him. You expect me to believe you, she hissed. After everything, he paused, then reached into his coat slowly, carefully, and pulled out a worn cassette tape. On the label, in fading pen, were the words for Lily. If he finds you. He held it out. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just asking you to listen. 2 days latterly sat on a cracked vinyl bench in a borrowed apartment overlooking the East River. The city blinked in the distance, uncaring and vast. The tape played in an old recorder beside her. Her mother's voice filled the room. Lily, baby, if you're hearing this, it means Julian found you. Or the version of him that's still out there. I need you to know something. Her mother's voice broke. He wasn't always like this. He was brilliant and kind. But then something changed. Something happened at the company, something they covered up. After that, he became someone else. Someone dangerous. Lily clutched the edge of the table. If he calls you Little Jasmine, it means he's already compromised. Double quotes, compromised. Not dead, not gone, but changed. Control. Her mother continued. There's more than one lie in our story, baby. And some of them were familiar faces. Don't go back to him. Not until you know the whole truth. Click. The tape ended. Lily didn't move. The city lights flickered in her eyes, but she didn't blink. She finally knew. This wasn't just about a lost father. This was about control, identity, a story buried by power and technology. And now, she was the last piece left uncovered. Lily stood up slowly. Whatever Julian Cross was now, she was going to find out. And she was going to finish what her mother started.